Dr. Jazz.
Thanks for finding the time. Appreciate it.
Dr. Jazz.
Welcome.
I checked at home on my in my CD collection. I have you like on 30 CDs or something. So
Oh,
going way back to Joe Henderson's the mid 80s, late 80s stuff.
great.
Um, but I wanted to start this talk. I mean, the primary reason is crossing paths, and I listened to it again today. And I first of all, I really love Frevo by Esberto Gismonti. I mean, he's I'm a guitarist, so he's one of my favorite composers. And
Yes, he's fantastic.
oh man, just tell me a little bit about this album. I mean, I have like 8 albums of you as a band leader. You haven't really ventured into this path many times. Uh, what's the story behind going to Brazil, actually? I mean, to Brazilian music and these
Well,
musicians and composers and
I fell in love with the music very early on in my teens when I was first exposed to it, through Jobim records and then Wayne Shorter's Native Dancer
right.
record. That one got me into Milton Nascimento, and I kind of just went down the rabbit hole from there. And each album I heard of various people led me to another place, and became
Mm,
big fans of like Lenny Andrade and Elise Regina. And I remember seeing a pianist named Tanya Maria. She
oh,
came to
sure. Yeah.
Vancouver, where I grew up, and I was, mesmerized by her. The music just really appeals to me and always did, not only for its rhythmic and harmonic beauty, but also just the joy, the kind of the spirit that it's played with.
Yeah.
Even though I don't speak Portuguese, um, I would be interested enough to check out, what the lyrics translated to in English, just so I could understand the song. I have recorded over the years on various albums, certain
Yeah,
pieces
yeah,
of,
tune too. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
did Sanfona by Egberto, um, Upaneguinho by Edu Lobo, and several Jobim pieces. So, um, but I think it just felt like the right time to make an album such as this. And my last 3 albums on Smoke have been largely original material, mostly original. And I was just ready to make this record that I've been kind of dreaming about for 30 years. I thought, well, it's time to do it, right?
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And you also got Joyce and Edu actually to sing on it, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's so
And I'd
beautiful.
worked with Joyce before. She invited me to perform on an album she made. It was a tribute to
Mm.
Elise Regina called Astronauta. So it was nice to be able to kind of return the favor, and especially have Joyce and Edu singing their own compositions.
Yeah, that's so nice. Are you going to promote this album somewhere or going to Europe with kind of this more Brazilian oriented repertoire? Or-
No.
Okay, that's a good answer.
I wish I was. There's nothing planned at the moment. I mean, the challenge is to get all these great musicians
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
Everyone is so busy, but I do know that we will be planning, maybe it'll happen next fall, a performance in the city, in the New York area anyway. It may not have, all the singers, but certainly we can do an instrumental performance.
yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. You mentioned Vancouver before in Canada. I mean,
Yes.
I love Canadian musicians, like so many, from Paul Bley to Kenny Wheeler, Terry Clark, and the list goes on. But how did you get excited for jazz, actually? I mean, what's your story there? Where was the first kick? I mean, did you hear
Well,
someone live or an album or?
I started taking classical lessons when I was really
Oh, okay.
young. Uh, my parents weren't musicians, but they were music lovers. And I started piano lessons at age 3, very
Oh, wow.
young.
Okay, that's young. Yeah.
Um, and then it was in high school that the band director there, whom I still keep in touch with, we call him Reb. His name was Mr. Rebliati, but we called him Reb. And he recruited me for the jazz band. I knew nothing about the music at that time. My parents didn't listen to it, listen to jazz, I mean. Um, and I just kind of I gravitated towards the music because I was intrigued with improvising,
Hmm.
and I was used to playing by ear tunes from the radio. You
Yeah.
know, at that time it was like, I don't know, Paul McCartney and Elton John and Stevie Wonder, and so I would enjoy taking those sounds that I heard on the radio and translating them to the piano.
Yeah.
And so that the idea of playing by ear was something I was familiar with. And but certainly all the, the rhythmic and harmonic challenges of playing jazz were completely new to me. I really knew nothing at all. So it was my band director that I credit with turning me on to the music, and he would always give me records to take home and listen to. Um, so I gradually just fell in love with it. And but I after high school I continued with classical
Oh, really? Oh,
um
okay.
at the University of Toronto for a couple of years, and it was there that I decided, this isn't really my thing, even though I love it. I still love playing classically. But I knew that jazz was really where my passion lay, and so I returned to Vancouver, and I just started to work around town and play with my peers and some older people. Some of the first gigs that I got that were very meaningful to me were with Dave Liebman.
Really? Seriously? Wow.
Interesting place to start.
Wow. Yeah. It's
And Joe Farrell, who came through town
really.
and
Oh man.
hired to play with him. I was pretty green, I didn't really know much, and I didn't think I was a very good player at that time, but to have those experiences were at that level of my development, really encouraged me and spurred me on to just get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Did those guys then encourage you to go to New York? I mean, when did you move to New York exactly? I mean, how did that
I
move happen
moved
actually?
to New York in the late 1985.
Wow. Already. Okay.
And I came first, really, I was awarded a Canada Council of the Arts grant, which enabled me to have enough funds to move here and study and live for the period of a year.
Mm,
And
that
it was
helps. Yeah.
during that year, basically 1986, that I began to, um, just branch out and play with a lot of great players my age at that time who lived in the city. Um, and so a lot of sessions, I started playing um, at the Blue Note After Hours
Oh yeah.
gig. Ted Curson,
Oh really?
the
Oh man.
player, he ran
Yeah, I
that.
love it. Yeah.
Um, and then I started to get other work. I guess my first real band experience on an international level was with a Blue Note Records kind of founded band named OTB, or Out of the
Oh yeah.
Blue.
Out of the yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I started doing that, and shortly thereafter, Joe Henderson called, and then I was out playing with him, and it all just kind of tumbled there very quickly. And I realized,
Mm.
within a few months that, I wasn't going to go back to Vancouver, at least right then. But here I am, whatever, 40 years
Amazing.
later. Yeah. So
How was that
that's how
experience with Joe like? I mean, you being in your mid 20s or even early 20s, and
yeah.
he's one of the giants called you, and like, how did that go?
Yes. Well, it was a great experience. I mean, at that time, the very first gigs with him were with an all-woman rhythm section, and I I wasn't familiar with the people I was playing with before I was playing with them. Um, but we went to Europe and played
Mm,
a lot of, just traveled weeks at a time. And
mm,
to hear him creating night after night on such a high level, it was so inspiring. I was hearing all the sounds I heard on
the
the
records.
albums,
Yeah.
and he didn't guide verbally very much, it was really through the horn, through the music. And he sounded great no matter what was going on behind him. So that was inspiring too, because I thought, well, he can surmount this. Like I should be able to do that too. I should be able to play at this same that at that high of
Level.
a level,
Yeah, yeah.
at least aspiring to anyway, no matter what's going on.
Mm. Yeah, you,
So
you 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 caught one of the last trains to play with the greats, actually, right? I mean,
I think so.
JJ also. I think you played with JJ Johnson and
Yes.
Wayne, right? You were in Wayne's
Mhm.
band, like James Moody. I mean, I don't know. I checked the records and like
Bobby
Bobby. Oh
Hutcherson.
yeah, Hutchers. Yeah, I mean, like our generation or even younger players. Well, they get to play with you now. You're like becoming
Sorry.
the Joe Henderson, which is great. But just you got to play actually with the guys who kind of invented the music, which
Yes.
that's an amazing school and experience.
Definitely, definitely. And
Yeah,
I carry it with me. I'm still inspired by those times, and
yeah,
all of that music and all of the um I don't know, the enlightenment that each one of them brought to the bandstand and to their own playing. I mean, it was just marvelous
yeah,
to witness and to be a part of it. To have the job, quote unquote, of uplifting the music in that particular band and that particular repertoire. Like, what can I do to uplift this sound and focus it and
yeah,
play with the spirit that was necessary for that song, or that piece of music. So yeah, fantastic grounding to have all of that experience. And even now,
yeah,
I'm playing with Ron Carter's quartet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly.
So that's another whole world of experience with him, and how his seeing the music through his lens. I think that's what rhythm section players do, at least I think the greatest ones. Not only, obviously you're going to be yourself, you're going to bring yourself to the music. It's not like I'm trying to copy whoever was the piano player that played in that band, or the one who was
Exactly. Yeah.
most known to play with that person before I had the experience. I wasn't really concerned with that. And I don't think any one of those leaders cared about that either. They're not looking to replicate somebody who came before me, or before whoever's in the band. They want you to be
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Um, but it is interesting because our job is to, I think, when someone else is the leader, what is it they're looking for in particular?
Yeah.
And how can I give them what it is that their vision of the music?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
it's a bit of a chameleon, right? You have to kind of
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
how
Absolutely.
to
Yeah. Being a
make
side
it work
woman,
for
that's so
them.
important. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you did that Brazil project with Ron also, right? And now it popped to me. Like, was
Yeah,
that
yes, there was
there's the
yes,
Brazil again connection. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How did Ron call you? What was the connection there?
Well, our relationship went back very many years because he was actually the bassist on my very first album,
Oh yeah,
which
with
was
yeah,
recorded like
exactly. With Louis
1989,
Nash on drums. Yeah.
1990.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then we'd see each other on, record dates, or he was a guest with Carnegie Hall Jazz Band when I was a part of it. Just, various times here and there, I would see him. And it was really Moger Miller who, when he couldn't make some of he was playing in Ron's trio at the time. This is
Yeah. Yeah.
before he had a trio and a quartet. He just had what's it called? The
Oh yeah, with
Golden
Russell.
Striker.
Russell on guitar. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. I
that's right.
love the trio. Man, it was
Golden
such a
Golden Striker Trio, I think it
yeah.
was called. Um, yeah, Mulgrew wasn't able to do a couple of things, and he recommended me to Ron. And I remember Ron calling me up and telling me that Mulgrew had recommended me, and then he said, "So I guess we'll give it a shot. We'll see how it goes." Okay, we'll do that. So yeah, and so sad Mulgrew's passing, and now Russell Malone as well.
Yeah,
And here's Ron, coming into his 88th year.
incredible. Yeah.
It's amazing. But such loss he's experienced in his life just because he's still here. And so many of his
Yeah.
colleagues, so many, have left. It's something.
Yeah, I mean, he was in, the Miles' quintet, and everyone of that band is gone, actually. I mean, and so many others that played with him in the recent years, yeah.
Well, Herbie Hancock's still here.
Herbie's still there, exactly, yeah. Oh, speaking of Herbie, yeah, and you mentioned your first record. Uh, what was the story there? How did you, you were so young then, and you got the Blue Note deal. I mean, you played with the Out of the Blue band already, but still, like, those two records, they put you, like, the bar was set really high, and those musicians in those bands, and, like, how was it for you back then, and those albums? Becoming a band leader at such a high level, I mean, like.
I just, I just did my best. Actually, before the Blue Note record, before my first Blue Note record, Enja had asked me about making an album, the label Enja.
Yeah.
Because my very first jazz recording was with Gary Thomas.
Oh yeah.
An album called Seventh
Quadrant. Oh yeah, that's an Enja. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that was my very first recording.
Wow.
As anything, as a sideman or whatever, piano player. And I know Matthias, was it Matthias Winkelmann?
Winkelmann, yeah.
He invited me to do an Enja album as a leader, and I didn't feel ready, and so I said no.
Oh, wow.
Then when the Blue Note thing came along a couple of years later, I just felt like, I can't keep saying no. I better say yes and get up the courage and make an album. So that's how it started.
And then there is Ron, and then there is Wayne, and there's Herbie on the first album. I mean,
yeah, well, with Wayne, that was a live recording that we had done together. The piece Gianna. It looks like Diana, but it's pronounced Gianna. And that was from when we were on the road together, and I just asked him, would it be okay, because we were recording all the time from the board, and I asked if it would be okay for me to include that on my album, and he very graciously allowed that. So that's how that happened. And with Herbie, he said, how would you like to do a duet? And actually it was somebody who was managing him at the time. He said, I think it came from him first. He said, how would you like to do a duet with Herbie? And, I was terrified, but
sure, yeah.
You can't say no. You have to just have some courage. And so I accepted that and was thrilled, of course, that was a track on my record. Looking back, I wished I'd done like an actual tune versus kind of a short original thing that grew into basically a stream of thought, improvisation. Which actually, I think it's pretty, and I still like it. I listened to it not long ago after I hadn't heard it for many years, and it was playing somewhere. I was like, oh yeah, let me check that out again, just because different viewpoints so many years later. But I kind of wish I'd taken the opportunity to play an actual I don't know,
composition kind
standard
yeah,
composition, something that had more structure to it. But I'm still proud of it.
that's
And
amazing. Those two
I
albums.
know
I mean,
that I remember, and I shouldn't even admit this, but I remember some reviews of the first album, and yeah, it had a lot of different things on it. It was just kind of an overview of a lot of different
yeah,
things I
yeah,
was
yeah.
into at the time. But there were several critics who were very, nasty about the fact that I had Wayne and Herbie represented on the album, and they were like, "Who does she think she is?
Really?
She
Oh
can't
man,
do that."
that's
And
terrible.
I remember reading them and feeling very disheartened because I was
Yeah,
very excited about the fact that these particular tracks were part of it, and I couldn't understand why somebody would want to put negativity on it. Um, but anyway, I've learned many times over since then not to pay attention to any of that stuff.
absolutely, absolutely. Even if you get a positive review, nothing changes, really.
That's absolutely correct. I mean,
It's
I think the main thing is if you like it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Do you personally feel that this is representative of you and you like what it's saying, then that's really all that matters.
Yeah, true. You mentioned an original composition before, and I listened for the moment today, and there's so many beautiful tunes from Nemesis and Homeward. I have it on CD. And when did you start writing music, actually? Like, when does that begin for you as a Renee, as a composer?
Well, I would say that it began uh, in my teens in high school
Already?
because
Well,
the band director was encouraging me to write arrangements of certain pieces and also to attempt to compose.
mm,
And when you're so young and you don't know anything, it's wonderful to have somebody just say, "Oh, do this. You should do this." And you don't think deeply about it. You think, "Okay, I'll try." I think maybe the older you get when you trying to do those things, maybe later on you think a lot more about it. But when you're young, you just kind of accept the idea and go for it. So I started composing fairly young,
mm.
and it's always been a part of my life. And I think
Yeah, yeah,
that it's a wonderful way to get to know yourself musically. Um, Oftentimes when I listen to other artists, maybe my age or younger or a little older, it's in their original music that you really hear their voice.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the two. The composition part, that's for me. Yeah, that's the thing. And you have found that, I think,
Yeah.
in the
Oh, thank
last
you.
30 years. Yeah, I mean, like, it's also reinventing yourself as a composer, which I wanted to ask you, like, how do you push yourself, after writing so many compositions to write new tunes? Like, where do you get ideas and inspirations for?
I think they come from all different places. Um, a lot of times these days it's often about, okay, you're going to make a new Artemis record.
Yeah,
Let's write some new tunes. So you're going to bring in, you know, new compositions, or you have an album coming up, and there's an actual reason to
we
do
need
it.
a deadline. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes, on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, it's just about playfulness and enjoying time at the piano and just
Yeah.
playing. And sometimes you come upon something that is attractive to you. And I'm speaking about me, of course.
No, no, yeah,
But
that's what I'm asking. Yeah, because
you,
I have
you
problems sometimes when I
ah,
sit down and I write a 7/4 tune, another kind of groovy, vampy, and I'm like, shit, it sounds the same as something 10 years ago. Or maybe you should not doubt that, but like that's why I'm asking you how you deal with the.
yeah. Well, I I get inspiration from all sorts of manner of things. It
Mm,
could be something completely unrelated to music, such as something in nature where I just
yeah,
feel like the way that makes me feel, I would like to express that in music. Not unlike how a painter might see something and feel like, oh, I I really like the colors of that, or the depth of that, or the light, to try and bring that into an artistic medium.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's unrelated things, or it's a feeling. Since I made an album called Ancestors back in
Yeah, yeah,
1990,
yeah.
and my mom had passed in 94, and I just met, I'm kind of throwing a lot at you, but I just met my biological mother, who um, is Punjabi. She's still with us. And so there was a whole new culture all of a sudden
Opening
in
up,
my
yeah.
life, and I just lost my mom that brought me up, and I had this whole new family. So that was something that I felt like I could express my feelings through music, of the joy of one thing and the sadness of another.
Mm.
Um, and then there's things like just, I kind of was messing around and I came up with this cool bass line that sounds like something interesting. I don't know yet, but I'm going to write it down
Yeah.
and we'll see if it develops. Or a little snippet of a melody where I might get 4 bars or 8 bars and then feel frustrated because, like, where do you go? Like, I feel like I hit a wall with it, right? But I truly believe in sleep.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I'm very often like, if you sleep and your subconscious mind is still working on that riddle, whatever it is, and then you come back to it in a day or so, and then you're able to move forward a little bit.
Mm. Yeah.
I kind of think about it almost like a crossword puzzle,
Yeah,
where
it is. Yeah.
you get half done and you go, oh, I can't do it, and then you come back and you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that yesterday? It's so obvious to me
So true.
now.
Yeah. So true.
And then there's like the idea of, I've never composed anything in B minor before. Let me try that. Or I'd like to write a ballad in D flat.
Yeah, just to set
Or
a
let me
task.
write
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
with a form that's very open. In my case, when I made an album called Life on Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a lot of different kind of rhythmic guests, and Zakir Hussain was
Yeah,
one of them. The late Zakir Hussain. I'm so
yeah,
sad. Hard to believe. He seems so vibrant
yeah.
still.
Crazy. Yeah, I saw him last 2 years ago in Slovenia with Dave and
Right.
Chris. I mean,
Wow.
wow,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great.
insane.
Very sad. Um, but knowing I was going to be working with him, and then the tabla, being a pitch, certain area, I thought, I challenged myself, okay, how can I make this work for him? And what does that mean to me? How am I going to negotiate this,
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm probably giving you more a longer answer than
No,
you.
please. That's why I'm asking you because I always when I speak with musicians, like part of this series, I always ask you guys like, how do you deal with these issues? Like,
Right.
or if you do have them or not, or it's just like, for me to egoistically to find better solutions also. So, but it's a process, like you say, and getting ideas, and I guess it would be nice to talk with Wayne or someone like that about that as well. Like maybe, when he was
Yeah,
still alive, like,
he,
oh yeah, how did you deal with that? And
he didn't really.
talk about it, right?
Yeah, he did. He did. He preferred not to talk about it.
Interesting.
There was an interview that I ended up doing with him and the quartet, and I mean the
Oh,
quartet with
really?
Danilo and John and Brian. It was in Detroit at the Detroit Festival, and I did ask him. I tried to ask him about his process in terms of composing, and I could tell right away it wasn't gonna,
It wasn't
you
long
know,
ago.
right.
Interesting.
But I also do know that um he he wasn't necessarily concerned with speed in terms of how quickly he worked.
Mm,
I know that he would think very deeply about what he was doing, of course, that's kind of obvious, but he wouldn't necessarily accept something just because it came out. Like he would look at it and revise it, and that
Hmm.
that much I do know.
Interesting. Yeah, because his music sounds so organic. That's for me like it's so natural when you listen to a tune. It's like
Yes.
wow.
Yeah, and the melodies sound inevitable, like
Oh,
like as
okay.
if they'd always been there and he just
Exactly.
plucked it out of the air.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Crazy. Uh, Rini, I wanted to ask you about you. You mentioned Gary Thomas before, and that's one part of your career which I would like to ask you about. Like, you almost touched this M-Bass collective in the aid of, there's Greg Osby and Gary Thomas. It's quite heavy music. Like, how did you get involved in that scene, actually?
They were just friends in Brooklyn,
Ah, okay.
and we would play together, and Terry Lynn Carrington
Oh, yeah.
was and I were uh friendly then too as well. We were all like just coming up, and and we would call each other and play, and then sometimes it would end up on a recording.
Mm,
Um I mean, I still am open. I mean, I feel like regardless of what I'm producing, I'm a fan of all kinds of music and all genres of jazz. Maybe more some than others, but
sure. Yeah.
I'm I love delving into various ways of playing.
Yeah.
As long as
Well,
it's genuine, like truthful to me.
yeah. Yeah, no, still, it's like, I found it interesting. It's such heavy music. When I listen to Gary Thomas's, records, they're like really challenging, heavy
Yes, a lot
stuff,
of that music is
you know.
definitely.
So it's like, wow, quite cool. Uh, I wanted to ask you also two more things, not to take too much of your time, but like you were so active, like since the early '90s to now. Wha how did Artemis begin? Like, it's such an important group nowadays, especially for you're promoting the compositions of all of you guys in the band, and I guess it's still active, right? What's the story there? And
Yeah, it's very active. We have a new recording coming out called, it's our third for Blue Note. It's called Arboresque.
mm.
It's coming out February 28th,
Oh
and we
wow,
are now
fantastic!
thank you.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
we're now a quintet with Allison Miller on drums, Noriko Ueda on bass, Ingrid Jensen
Hmm.
on trumpet, and a fantastic younger tenor saxophonist named Nicole Glover.
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so this next album is quintet, and I think we've landed on that we're going to keep it that way. We're going to keep it as a quintet. But the band, the genesis of the band kind of happened back in 2016.
Already. Well,
A European promoter asked me if I would like to help put a band together to celebrate International Women's Day with some concerts in, excuse me, Paris and Luxembourg. And at that time, it was Terry Lynn Carrington and Linda um, May,
on bass, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and O, um, Ingrid, Melissa Aldana,
Oh yeah.
Anat Cohen, Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, and and me. Yeah, I think that's it. And and then we just had fun. We had fun playing together, and we thought we should do some more. I mean, yes, it was initially put together as an all-female band, and I don't normally do that for the sake of doing that.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I agreed to take on this, project. And but then we just had fun playing, and we thought, we should do some more playing. And so the following year, Terry couldn't make it and Linda couldn't make it because they were very busy. So that's when Allison and Noriko
Yeah.
came into the band. And we toured all over Europe. We still weren't calling ourselves Artemis,
Artemis.
and
Oh yeah.
we had such dumb names at the festival, like Ladies of Jazz or Woman to Woman. I mean, just weird stuff that we didn't relate to. And so we thought, man, we got to get a name because this is not good.
Mm.
And so that's how Artemis came about. Actually, Ingrid found the
Yeah,
name,
with the
or
name. Yeah.
yeah, came up with that. And then fast forward to 2018, we were performing. I think it was like one of our first times performing under the name of Artemis. We were at the Newport Jazz Festival, and the Blue Note president, John was there, and he I guess he liked what he heard, and he invited us to make
Beautiful.
some records.
Records. Beautiful.
That's how it came about, really.
No, it's fantastic since all of you compose as well, right? I mean, it's a nice way to promote your music. And you know, if you look back in your career in mid 80s, this would have almost not been possible if you know, to get an all-female band like that together. You
Right.
know, it's incredible how also that part.
Yeah. Times have changed. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many
absolutely.
young
Incredible.
female, you know,
Instrumentalists, yeah.
instrumentalists
Yeah.
around, and that more than anyone knows about. So it's just, I think it's just, you know, pe it's the different time period, you know. It's not
Absolutely.
so unusual these days to see a
No,
woman
yeah.
instrumentalist,
No, no.
not just a pianist or not just a vocalist, but a drummer, you know, trumpet, trombone, whatever. It's
All instruments, yeah.
not remarkable. And that's the way it should be.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Uh, Renee, what's still on the schedule for you for this year? Like, you mentioned a new album by Artemis, end of February, but like other projects or festivals or gigs coming to Europe, maybe by any chance, or?
Yes, I th we're hoping to come to Europe twice this year with Artemis. I
Oh,
think
wow.
in
Yeah.
July, and also in October. I think we'll be hopefully over that way. I'd like to come to Slovenia.
Oh man, yeah, would be nice to have
Would
you
be
here.
nice. Um, but next, actually, just beginning of March 4 through 9, we'll be at the Village Vanguard.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
And that's kind of a milestone for us as a band, but also surprisingly, because none of the other women have played there outside of, I think Noriko did one gig with the big band subbing on bass. But it's remarkable to me that, you know, Alison Miller or Ingrid Jensen
Yeah,
have not played at the Vanguard in all these many years. And so I'm really proud to bring the band in, and everyone's really excited
beautiful.
about playing there. It just feels like a good kind of, you know, milestone for maybe the music and for
Absolutely.
women in the music too.
You played there with Joe probably, right, already?
Oh, I played there
Right.
a
Like,
lot of
but
times.
the
Yeah,
first time was it with Joe or
first time was with Joe. Yes.
probably, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
First time was with Joe, and
Yeah,
then over the years,
yeah,
JJ,
yeah.
not with Moody. Moody didn't really play there.
Mm,
But a lot of my own bands over the years. So
beautiful. Yeah, it's a special place. I mean, just the spirit, the
it
smell, the
is.
spirit there. It's like
The
a
ghosts in the club.
privilege. Yeah, yeah.
You know, once I was performing there, if you have time for me to tell you
Oh,
this.
please, I love that. Yeah, yeah, please.
Um, I was playing with Bobby Henderson, and we were playing this tune called Chan's Song, which
Hmm.
was from around
Oh, yeah,
midnight.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, 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 sure.
Herbie wrote it,
Derby wrote it. Yeah.
and usually we would just play it, and Bobby would take the first solo, and you know, we'd go from there. And this particular night, we played the head, and Bobby kind of looked over at me like, "Okay, you take it, you play the first solo." But I noticed something odd in his face, and he just looked strange, like not well. And I was a little bit concerned, so I'm playing my solo, and I kind of glance over, and there's that red leather bench, you know, and he was
Hmm.
sitting
Yeah.
down on it, and to the right of the stage, or my right, I should say. Um, and he just looked like something wasn't quite right. So anyway, I play my solo, finish my solo. He comes back up to the bandstand and he starts taking the song out. He didn't play solo.
Mm.
And then he called a break. And, you know, it was like the end of the set all of a sudden. We wouldn't normally finish on that song either. And so we're just moving to go off of the stage. And I said, Bobby, are you okay? Are you feeling all right? And he said, oh, Renee, Dexter Gordon was on the bandstand. He was standing right behind me. I just couldn't play. He was right there. And of course, Dexter been gone for many years.
Sure.
But thinking of Chan's song and the Round Midnight movie and how close Bobby and Dexter were, and you know, that was his experience right at that time, was that Dexter's spirit, or Dexter, it had to be Dexter's spirit, it couldn't be anything else, was right standing there with him, and it freaked him out, but it was so real for him. And I thought to myself, wow, like that. And I you know, and I noticed it right in when we were playing the In Head, you know, the beginning melody. I noticed that his whole demeanor changed, and anyway, that was a moment, you know, thinking about Dexter's spirit being on the bandstand at the Vanguard.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it, it's such a special place, right? Like, you know, Train and all those guys and those legendary recordings and Sonny and it's crazy. Like, if you think about it, it's one of the rare places that's still actually in its original, you know, still there in New York. So it's a treasure. I hope it stays there another
I hope
50
so
years
too.
or something.
So too.
Considering everything,
Special place.
Absolutely, Renee, thanks so much for sharing some of this stuff. Appreciate it. And if you're going to be around in Europe, I hope to catch you. And
thank you. I hope so too.
Yeah, and good luck with everything. And hope to see you on the road. So
thank you. And can you tell me how to pronounce your last name?
Oh, Samo Šalamon.
Salamon.
Salamon, yeah, exactly. Cool.
Well,
Great.
it's
been a pleasure. Yeah.
Pleasure talking to you, and I hope to greet you in person one day.
Yes, me too. Me too.